Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Michael Lofton Show here on Reason and Theology. We're going to do a follow up on the stream that I did yesterday, where a female Anglican priestess celebrated Mass recently at a Catholic church alongside 7 Catholic bishops and 80 Catholic priests. Not only that, she also received communion. Now, yesterday, I was pretty limited in what I could show to you because I didn't have video footage at the time. Now I do, because somebody came in the comment section and was gracious enough to point me to where I can locate a video of the service. They also were gracious enough to give some timestamps, and they offered some feedback about what went down. And I want to engage some of that because some have attempted to defend what took place here. And I'm going to show that really it's indefensible. So I'm going to offer some pushback for those who attempt to defend this. Again, to recap not only the situation, but the Catholic Church's perspective, according to Pope John Paul II, only men can be ordained to the priesthood. Women are excluded from the priesthood. And this is taught by the Catholic magisterium as a definitive doctrine. So the Catholic Church would say that this is an infallible teaching that can't be changed. It can't be reversed. And that's why you find in the Code of Canon Law, only males are candidates for the priesthood, and only they can celebrate the Eucharist. That being said, during the installation of this Catholic bishop in Brazil, during the Mass of his installation, he's been a bishop since 2010, but he was recently appointed to head a new archdiocese created by Pope Francis. During that installation Mass, in the presence of numerous other bishops and priests, a female Anglican priestess was present, received communion, and some are going to say that she didn't actually participate in the consecration of the Eucharist, but I'm going to show some evidence to the contrary. Now, of course, from the Catholic perspective, she can't participate. That is, any kind of valid confection of the Eucharist. She can't participate in that. Only a male can, who's validly ordained, can confect the Eucharist. But the question is, did she still at least attempt to simulate a sacrament? And was this done with full knowledge of the clergy that were present? That's what we're going to take a look. And because we have some video footage showing that update, showing you some of this information visually, I'm going to show that and also update you with some additional points to consider. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. By the way, go ahead and hit the like button and the subscribe button if you haven't already. I really would appreciate your support of the channel. Let's see here. Okay, so this is in Spanish, but good old YouTube has a closed captions and an automatic translator there. So we will be able to somewhat follow along whenever there's speaking moments with the auto translate feature. But here there is a procession of the clergy. Again, over 80 priests present, 7 bishops. And you can see her here in the back part of the procession towards the beginning. Let's take a look.
Venham todos com alegria aclamar nosso Senhor, caminhando ao seu encontro, proclamando o seu louvor. Ele é o Rei dos Reis e dos deuses o maior. Vão entrando e de joelhos ao Senhor nós.
Okay, so you can see her there very clearly wearing a bluish purple stole. Now, if we skip a little bit forward to the 1:12, so 1 hour 12-minute mark, you're going to hear the bishop reference her. We previously saw in another article that he had mentioned her during the homily, but here we now have video footage of him referencing her presence there. So it's not like the bishop isn't aware that she's there. He's not only aware, he calls attention to the fact that she and a few other Protestant ministers are present, and he highlights the fact of how wonderful it is because he feels this is a really good ecumenical moment. So let's go ahead and press play, and you can follow along with the closed caption auto translate feature here.
Né? Isso. Entre as autoridades religiosas, nós temos o pastor da igreja, deixa eu achar aqui, isso, da igreja episcopal, não, a ministra pastoral, que é da igreja episcopal anglicana do Brasil, que deve estar aqui para cima também, isso, obrigado por estar conosco, e o pastor da igreja de Renovar em Cristo, é essa mesmo, né? O pastor também presente, né? Então, nesse sentido ecumênico também, a presença da nossa igreja, né?
All right, so they're all clapping for the wonderful ecumenical moment that this is, where you have Protestant pastors and a female Anglican priestess present. Now, I'm going to not only show her receiving communion, but I do want to note that one person offered some feedback for the show, and I wanted to engage it. One person said, well, the news reports that claim that she was attempting to confect the Eucharist and concelebrating are misleading, because this commenter argues that she sat behind the priests in the presence of extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion. So they argue that because of the location of where she sat, this was not effectively her trying to participate in the actual confection of the Eucharist. I want to push back on that a little bit because I think that there are some points to consider whenever we take note of her receiving the Eucharist. I want to show you something. If you go to around the 1 hour, 55 minute mark, let's see something pretty curious here together. Share my screen once more. You can see her here in the back. Now notice who all is approaching the altar. Well, priests, okay? And they're approaching the altar to do what? Receive the sacrament. Now, let me ask you a question. Who approaches the altar and takes the Eucharist from the altar and self-communicates? Who normally does that? Well, a priest, right? Do extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion normally go directly to the altar and take the Eucharist and self-communicate? No. Usually the priest will go to the extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion and present communion to them. The only ones who are going to self-communicate would normally be deacons, priests, bishops. So the fact that she's about to approach the altar and self-communicate shows that even in this setting, she's being considered a priestess or a female priest. She's not being considered an extraordinary minister of Holy Communion because EMHCs don't do that. So whoever organized this, I don't think it's possible to say, well, no, this was just a mishap and they weren't considering her a priest. No, it clearly were, because here she's approaching the altar and self-communicating as all of the priests would do. Now, not only that, but you also have the problem of her receiving Catholic communion, which she should not be doing. And so there's that difficulty as well. There are some circumstances in which Protestants can receive communion according to the Code of Canon Law, but I think many are going to argue this is not one of those cases. All right, so take a look.
Louvai-o, anjos seus, todos louvai-o. Louvai-o, legiões celestiais.
All right, now watch what happens.
Ao teu mando lançarei.
Now you'll notice the camera person immediately shifts away to the choir at the moment that she goes to self-communicate, right? Do you think that's a coincidence? Yeah, probably not. Probably not. I think that was deliberate, but it's obvious she not only presents herself to the altar to self-communicate, but then receives Catholic communion.
Ao teu mando lançarei.
Yeah, based on that alone, in addition to many other points I might add, based on that alone, I don't think this is defensible. I don't think people can say, well, actually, she sat in the very back. If you look a little bit later in the video, it shows her sitting in the back behind the priests with what they claim to be extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion. And so some are going to argue, well, that shows that they're not letting her actually participate in the confection of the Eucharist as a priestess. Yeah, I'm not buying it because she clearly approaches the altar during that moment where only ordained clergy would be allowed to do so. So I'm sorry. I appreciate the feedback, but I don't think it is sufficient to account for all the facts that took place here. Of course, the bishop was asked about this, and he said that he has been already in communication with the Vatican on the matter, and has reaffirmed his commitment to keeping the canons of the church and the faith of the church. And in an indirect way, he basically apologized without actually apologizing, and recognized that he made a mistake without admitting he made a mistake. A lot of good people are asking great questions like, how did 80 clergy and 7 bishops allow this to happen? That's a good question. I don't know. You would think in this moment, share my screen once more, you would think in this moment somebody would have stopped her and said, hey, this is inappropriate, it's scandalous, you shouldn't be here, shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be receiving communion, let alone approaching and self-communicating like that. Now, did she actually participate or attempt to participate in the confection of the Eucharist? They don't show video footage one way or another, but I suspect she did, because again, she's attempting to present herself here as a priestess and self-communicating. I have to assume she attempted to confect the sacrament during the words of institution. So let's also go to another part here around the 1 hour 41 minute mark. Let's just take another quick look at what's going on here.
Mistério da fé.
Anunciamos, Senhor, a vossa morte e proclamamos a vossa ressurreição. Vinde, Senhor Jesus.
Celebrando, pois, o memorial da morte e ressurreição do vosso Filho, nós vos oferecemos ao Pai o pão da vida e o cálice da salvação. E vos agradecemos porque nos tornastes dignos de estar aqui na vossa presença e vos servir.
Aceitai, ó Senhor, a nossa oferta.
Suplicantes vos pedimos que, participando do corpo e sangue de Cristo, sejamos reunidos pelo Espírito Santo num só corpo.
O Espírito nos una num só corpo.
Lembrai-vos, ó Pai, da vossa igreja que se faz presente pelo mundo inteiro e que aqui convocada nesse dia em que Cristo venceu a morte, para aqui oficializarmos a instalação dessa nova província eclesiástica. Que essa igreja permaneça sempre unida, em comunhão com o nosso Papa Francisco, esse nosso novo arcebispo Odelir, comigo, meus irmãos bispos aqui.
Now, did you hear them mention the name of Pope Francis there during the commemoration part in the liturgy? So obviously this is a Catholic Mass for those who were in denial, trying to say this wasn't a Catholic Mass. Yeah, it clearly is. I mean, Google the name of the bishop, right? You also have the bishop being appointed during this service as head of this archdiocese by Pope Francis. They're mentioning his name here. It's clearly a Catholic Mass, just for those who are kind of in denial.
Aqui presentes da província eclesiástica do estado de Santa Catarina.
Oh, by the way, do you see something here? Looks like they are wearing the logo of the Jubilee year, the Jubilee 2025 Pilgrims of Hope logo, this just incredibly aesthetic logo that the Vatican came up with for the Jubilee. It looks like they're wearing that on their vests. Yeah, okay.
E do mundo inteiro, os outros bispos, os diáconos, os presbíteros, a vida religiosa consagrada, os ministros e ministras leigos do vosso povo e todos os que são ministros servidores do vosso povo.
Lembrai-vos, ó Pai, da vossa igreja.
Lembrai-vos também na vossa misericórdia dos nossos
Let me rewind it
irmãos
just a little.
Filho, no fim da ceia, ele tomou o cálice.
Here's the words of institution. Now, the female priestess, which again, from the Catholic perspective, there is no such thing. I'm just identifying her as a female priestess because that's what she would identify herself as. And I'm just trying to speak of who we're talking about here. So she is located all the way to the right of the screen towards the back, so you can't see her in the video. But I have to assume that she's attempting to participate here in the confection of the sacrament, not only because there are reports that she did, but also because, again, she presents herself to self-communicate at the altar as if she were a clergyman. So.
Em suas mãos, e dando graças novamente, o entregou a seus discípulos, dizendo: Tomai todos e bebei.
It would be good to know if she had her hand elevated during this moment, but of course they don't show the video. Catholic Rock, scrupulously, like Pharisees normally do, says she's not a priestess. Stop calling her that. Mr. Pharisee, I literally just explained to you why I just said that. Pay attention.
Este é o cálice do meu sangue, o sangue da nova e eterna aliança, e será derramado por vós e por todos para a remissão dos pecados. Fazei isto em memória de mim. Mistério da fé.
Anunciamos, Senhor, a vossa morte.
All right, so there's the words of institution. Here you can see the congregation receiving communion.
Instituiu todas as coisas para sempre e deu a tudo uma lei que é imutável. Ao teu mando lançarei de novo as redes. Ao teu mando lançarei de novo as redes.
Louvai o Senhor Deus por toda a terra, grandes peixes e abismos mais profundos, feras do mato e vós mansos animais,
Todos os répteis e os pássaros que voam. Ao teu mando lançarei de novo as redes. Ao teu mando lançarei de novo as redes. Louvem o nome do Senhor, louvem-no todos, porque somente o seu nome é excelso. A majestade e esplendor de sua glória ultrapassam em grandeza o céu e a terra.
All right, so skipping forward here just a little bit towards the end. It's right around here. You could see her taking photos with all of the clergy. Let's skip forward to the moment.
Foi o início de uma relação com Deus. profundas.
She's right over here in the back. You can't see her at this angle, but I forget the exact timestamp, but you can kind of see her towards the end.
Ao mar, vou sem temor, pois sei que vale a pena achar o rumo certo e o meu lugar. Navegarei em águas mais profundas e lançarei as redes ao mar. Vou sem temor, pois sei que vale a pena achar o rumo.
Well, anyways, that gives you just a little bit of an idea, a little bit of a feel for what the service was like. So, yeah, well, again, the bishop admitted that there was a mistake here without explicitly admitting that he made a mistake. This is not the first time we've seen this. Other people have asked, is this the first time? No, this has happened before. Some were asking, is Pope Francis going to do something about this or write a letter? I think this is one of the things that many people have rightly pointed out when it comes to an inconsistency in addressing liturgical matters. There could be more balance here. I also want to point out, as some others have noted in the comment section of the previous video, that this is exactly what has created so many people who are what's called radical traditionalists. This is one of the reasons why, a lot of times they're reacting to stuff that they see like this. So I think it's a little counterintuitive for Pope Francis and the bishops to, have mishaps like this, because what that does is it just causes people to react against it and look elsewhere for solutions. And so if Pope Francis and the bishops really want to address problems with the liturgy, I think this is where they need to start. I understand some of the concerns about the traditional Latin Mass that Pope Francis has with Traditionis Custodes. He explains them there. I understand, but seems to me like it's this kind of stuff that needs to be addressed first and foremost, that really needs to be front and center when it comes to the discipline of the church. But unfortunately, I don't think there's going to be any real discipline here. And it was a little sad to see that the bishop wasn't a little bit more upfront and apologizing for this. It was kind of a sorry, not sorry moment when we read his response yesterday. I think one could do better, and there could be more consistency here in discipline. Also, again, I have to highlight what I pointed out yesterday, and that is, I don't know how anybody can be ordained a bishop and allow mishaps like this. I don't understand that. I don't know how somebody could fail so miserably and be yet so ignorant in the very basics of things that are central to their job description. I don't know that. And I can't say that this is unique to this bishop. The analogy I used yesterday was it's like being a car mechanic, but you don't know how to change oil, and you don't know what an alternator is. You don't know how to change a tire. You don't even know what a car is. It's kind of that stuff. It's like, there really needs to be some modifications to the process in determining who is made a bishop these days. And I think that would fix, if that's addressed, that would fix some problems overnight. A lot of the other problems that one sees in the Catholic Church, I think, would be resolved pretty quickly if some of these underlying issues were addressed. Anyways, those are my thoughts. You may or may not agree, but I would love to hear your response. If you agree or disagree, feel free to put your response there in the comment section. Thank you, Mahovel, for the super chat. He says, let's pray Pope Francis recovers before we expect a reaction by the Pope. I was also shocked by how many people were receiving the Eucharist. Speaking of Francis recovering, let me just show you a quick update here. Of course, for those who may not be familiar, he has been in the hospital for the last few days. fighting a sickness. And there is an update. So if we go here to CNA, it notes that Pope Francis remains in stable condition and spent his 4th day in the hospital praying. Let me share that on my screen. You can't see that. I'm sorry. Here we go. 4th day in the hospital praying, reading, and doing some work, according to the latest health update released by the Vatican on Monday night. The 88-year-old Pope is without a fever as he continues to receive treatment for a polymicrobial respiratory infection. He receives the Eucharist, did some reading, and dedicated himself to some work activities. Pope Francis is touched by the numerous messages of affection and closeness that he continues to receive. There is, let's see, another update here. If we scroll down just a little bit more, all diagnostic results of the Pope indicate a complex clinical situation that will require an appropriate hospital stay at Rome's Gemelli Hospital, Vatican officials say. So because of that, the general audience has been canceled, the Wednesday audience for February 19th in a couple of days. And so they expect him to remain in the hospital. And so they had previously said a couple of days ago he was showing some slight signs of improvement, but this diagnostic seems to indicate that an appropriate hospital stay is still required. I don't know if that means that he's gotten worse. I don't know if it means they've just discovered that there are more problems. I don't know what that means other than they're keeping him there and canceling an event that happens 2 days from now. So I guess they're kind of expecting him to remain there. So you can certainly keep him in your prayers that he receives a speedy recovery. Thank you for bringing that up and mentioning it. I do appreciate y'all's interaction. So again, put your responses there in the comment section. I would love to hear your thoughts about this. Or if you have some additional information about it, feel free to put it in the comment section. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button while you're at it. Okay, that's going to do it for today, y'all. We'll see you later. Hey, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the like button, and if you want to support the channel, visit patreon.com/Reason and Theology.